Hey everybody, it's David, ECBA 406, coming to you today again from my office in Dallas, Texas. Lesson 4, review Lesson 5 preview. So without further ado, let's get started. Lesson 4 started off talking about outsourcing. As I explained last week, I wanted to make sure that you had a full view of outsourcing, both from a challenges perspective and also why do companies do it? And is there a good thing for outsourcing? I mean, are there good components of outsourcing? And so one of the things that you'll find very rarely are there any true absolutes in business, okay? And so while it may be easy for an individual to say all outsourcing is bad, that's just simply not true. Or while someone may say all outsourcing is good, that's simply not true either. And so you need to make sure as you go forward in business, particularly looking at a lot of different options going forward, that you don't have these hard and fast rules. And one of the things that I've always tried to have students do is to look at these big issues that face business, both from the consumer perspective, from the employee perspective, but also from the company perspective. And too often what happens is that students will look at it simply from the consumer because that's all they understand, that's all they've experienced. But you also have to look at this from the company perspective, and why does the company do the things that they do? Sometimes they're foolish, but not all the time. And so outsourcing is one of those topics that gets a lot of play today, because when you use the word outsourcing, people immediately think of jobs to China or jobs to Mexico or jobs somewhere else. Well, that's just simply not the case. And so this question was really designed to give you a much broader picture of outsourcing and hopefully understand that it's not all disadvantaged. There are some advantages for companies and there are some advantages for consumers in those areas as well. Okay? And so that was discussion 1. Assignment 1 talked about Kmart and Sears, one company, since they are combined now, that's really being challenged in the marketplace. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of questions on whether or not they're going to make it and whether or not Sears can stay out of bankruptcy. Not only just from the overall competition that they have with Walmart and Target and other more popular types of retail companies, but certainly with Amazon and the online space in those areas. And one of the things that you may remember, I hope you do, because many of you had me in that class, but from your marketing class, ECBA 308, you talked about the 4 P's of marketing: product, promotion, price, and place. And Sears is kind of in no man's land on those things. From a product perspective, they have many of the same products except in their own brands on certain things. From a price perspective, it's very difficult for them to compete with the online retailers and to compete with Walmart and Target. From a place perspective, a lot of their locations are in undesirable locations, which makes it a challenge. And then place also happens to be online versus bricks and mortar stores. And so I've never ordered anything online from Sears. Don't plan on it. It's not even in my decision mix as I go forward to purchase something. So a lot of big challenges there for Sears going forward, and that's what I had hoped that you'd gotten around to discussing in that application paper in Lesson 4. Okay, that's Lesson 4 review. Lesson 5 preview going forward talks about corporate culture. Corporate culture. This is really big today, and part of the reason is because as companies go out, they can go out and find people who have certain competencies. And by competencies, I mean knowledge and skills. I mean, you will bring that to your company because of the things that you've learned, because of some of your experience, because of the things that you're learning in your degree program. So you bring knowledge and competency to companies. But the challenge is for them is, how does all of that fit into a culture? We have a class in our degree program that talks about how do you work in a multicultural environment? How do you lead in a multicultural environment? And by multicultural, I don't necessarily just mean ethnic. I mean, when you talk about cultures in business, people automatically go to different ethnicity, and that's true. But look at the political culture that's out there today. I mean, if you have someone, and this is, I'm filming this while we're talking, right in the middle of the political environment with Hillary and Bernie and Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And if you have somebody who's a Hillary and Bernie fan sitting in a cube next to a Donald Trump and Ted Cruz fan, they may get at it every once in a while. And so when you think about culture, think about all the different things that you bring in. Think about the culture that you have from a global perspective and working on global teams today. There is certainly a much different culture in some of the places that I'll be visiting coming up in my travels than there is in the United States. There's a lot of different culture in South Carolina and Seattle, where I'm from. And so if you begin to look at all those and put all those into a melting pot, if you will, a lot of challenges today with corporate culture. And then what I wanted you to do as well on this question is I wanted you to look at what challenges are even greater if you have labor unions involved. Now, I don't want, and I specify this on the sheet. This is not a forum, if you will, to discuss the merits or demerits of labor unions. I don't want to get into that discussion. I don't want you to get in that discussion, but I do want you to take a look at it and say, what are the challenges when people come together collectively and impact on the culture there? And so, just this week, the French air traffic controllers. Their unions going on strike. They go on strike, seems like every other week. But because they have very strong labor unions in France, it changes the culture that French airlines and that French air transportation has. I can tell you the impact on me, for example, is that whenever I plan a trip to Europe, I don't fly through Paris. I don't fly Air France. And the reason that I don't is because I don't like the challenge that I'll have, because I've been over there once when they've gone on strike, and it just caused me all kinds of headaches. And so the culture that I see of French aeronautics from a travel perspective is one of I can't count on them, so I don't fly them. And so that's just one example going forward. All right? So let's see, that's corporate culture on the discussion question. And then the assignment this week talks about external versus internal hiring. Now, one of the things I want you to look at on this one, again, you're going to have some biases on this. Everyone thinks a certain way, or you may think a certain way on this. But I want you to be very objective on this as well. Think about it from particularly a new company. Maybe your company has a new product or a new process that you're looking to get into. So it's not in your core competency of your company, for example. So maybe you go out and you start a new business somewhere. Well, training takes time. Training takes money to get people to look at those areas. So would you be better doing that, or would you be better hiring your talent from the outside? And so again, two sides of the fence on this. Just make sure that you're very objective and very balanced in the way that you look at this going forward. All right? Have a great week. When you're seeing this, I will be on the cruise ship. So if you need me, make sure that you bounce me an email. I have email access, and I'll have Skype access. So if you need me, make sure you bounce that email. I won't be accessible via phone. So just want to make sure that we have a chance to chat. Have a great week. Study hard. Talk to you soon.